Tonight, Strategic Mobilisation Ghana Limited dismisses claims of political patronage and describes Office of the Special Prosecutor's allegation against the company as baseless.
So if somebody says that there is no need, please just refer the person to the Auditor General's report. From 2012 to 2016, the need assessment were done there. The need for the service that Mr. Edusei rendered the country is in there.
We'll be engaging SML here on Top Story. Top Story, as always, is brought to you by Telecel, connecting energies and holy insecticide spray and coil. Enjoy a holy sleep. My name is Fostina Sarfo. Please stay for details. Tonight, lawyer for Strategic Mobilisation Ghana Limited, Cephas Boyo, has rejected what he describes as unfounded claims by the Office of the Special Prosecutor that the company was being used as a proxy for political patronage and illicit enrichment. Addressing a packed news conference in Accra, Mr. Boyo insisted that there is no evidence linking SML or its owners to any political figure, describing the OSP's suggestion as speculative and stretch of imagination, unquote. He said the company's ownership and shareholding structure as transparent and traceable through legitimate business records and financial disclosures filed with the registrar of companies. Well, let's listen to the lawyer for SML. We'll be back with more.
The need for SML's contribution in revenue assurance was necessitated by Mr. Edusei's reading of the Auditor General's report between 2012 and 2016. So if somebody says that there is no need, please just refer the person to the Auditor General's report. From 2012 to 2016, the need assessment were done there. The need for the service that Mr. Edusei rendered the country is in there. And all these reports were laid in Parliament. You can fact check that. Of course, we all know that all these reports annually goes to Parliament. Check them out and see whether the need wasn't there. The reports documented extensive control failures within the GRA Customs Division, missing declarations, undervaluations, forged exemptions, and unenforced bonds, costing the state over 1.67 billion in revenue losses. Given Mr. Edusei's credentials as enumerated, it is clear that this is not someone who could easily be used by Mr. Ken Oforiatta to establish SML in the manner alleged by the OSP. And therefore, SML's establishment it is a policy-driven corrective measure by Mr. Edusei. Now, I would like to go straight to the allegation by the OSP.
Well, you had the lawyer for SML. Let me bring in Manasseh Azuriawuni. He is an investigative journalist, and he has been following this case between the SML and GRA. Manasseh, we appreciate your time here on Top Story. I'd like to start with your initial reaction. Tonight, we've been hearing from SML, and they have disassociated themselves from the activities of the former finance minister. What's your initial reaction to this news conference?
Well, I don't know how SML can dissociate itself from Ken Oforiatta because there are documents to show that Ken Oforiatta was promoting the interest of SML, expanding their contracts to the upstream and mining sectors when there was evidence that the services they claimed to be providing some were redundant and some were already being taken care of by other companies. When you have the opportunity to speak to SML, ask them exactly what they were checking. Were they checking under declaration or under reporting? They said no and deleted those services from their website when we confronted them with evidence. Were they checking diversion? They said no when we confronted them with evidence, and they deleted that from their website. Were they checking dilution? They said no. So what problem was SML solving? They claimed their meters were there to provide assurance. But if you are bringing something to police an existing system, then common sense should tell you that it should be superior to the existing one. Our investigation, which SML's engineers confirmed in our documentary, showed that SML's meters reading were less efficient than the existing ones which the GRA used for taxes. GRA never used SML's readings for taxes. The excuse they gave was that their meters use sound system technology, so it was outside and could not get the exact recording like the existing meters that were used. Now, if you take President Akufo-Addo's white paper on the KPMG report, it said that the services provided by SML, the external price verification and the transaction audit at the ports, were already built into GRA's ICOMs, so they were redundant. These are the president's words. How much did we pay for that component of the service? 506 million Ghana cedis. So what they are saying, I don't expect them to say anything new. We went to this company with microphones, not guns, and when we asked them to substantiate their own claims, they ran away. They claimed they saved 3 billion. When we asked them, they claimed that the media misquoted them, but it was on their website. So I asked him, this is on your website, so how can you say the media misquoted you? That's when he says in the documentary that, well, me, I don't know of any website matter. So this is a company that got all manner of support from the states. And this is a company that the Public Procurement Authority said didn't have the capacity to deliver. Don't give them single source contracts on 3 occasions.
But then if you listen to the lawyer for SML tonight, he has been raising concerns. In fact, he says that if anything, Ken Ofori-Atta did SML great disservice because he failed to give them any tax cuts.
Well, I don't see how anybody in their right senses would give you tax cut when the contract says every liter of petroleum that comes, you get a fixed percentage, 5 pesos from every liter of petroleum product. The lawyer is claiming, and it is false, that they are paid based on their performance. The contract is stated that every liter of petroleum product that comes, you are entitled to 5 pesos per liter. And this 5 pesos looks small until you realize that we consume billions, hundreds of millions a month, and then I think about 400 million liters a month at a time. Now it may have gotten to over 500. Then at the ports, they were entitled to a fixed percentage. So ask the lawyer to read you the contract that says you will be paid based on how much you recover per month, which ask the lawyer when you are able to get them. The upstream contract said they should be entitled to 0.75% of petroleum every barrel that is produced. So whether or not they do anything, once the contract is signed and they put their meter there, SML does not determine the number of barrels produced. So how come they are entitled to a fixed amount? This is in the contract. So that claim that they are paid based on the performance, it is their performance is false. The gold mining sector, they were to be entitled to 0.5% of every production of gold. So this year that we've made billions because of gold price and everything, they were going to get fixed percentages. So it is not true that they were being paid based on performance.
But then today they said that the OSP's news conference at its best was speculative because they presented reports that showed that they were indeed doing the work and making enough financial savings for the state. Now they're worried about the OSP and how he's conducting himself with news conference. They're concerned that this is damaging their reputation.
This is a company that claims to have reputation but has made false claims and deleted from their website. This is a company that has taken or received payment of 1.4 billion Ghana cedis from the states. So we should hold them responsible. This is a company that, if you read pages 157 and 158 of the KPMG report, it summarizes the findings of revenue and also petroleum volumes made, and SML does not feature to contribute anywhere in those pages. It actually said SML recorded the lowest volumes. Okay, so how can this company claim credit for anything?
Now, I've just been going through the KPMG report, and one of the key things that they found was that there was no evidence of the required parliamentary approval for the award of the multi-year contracts to SML. But tonight we've been hearing from SML defend that they did not even need parliamentary approval to go ahead with this deal.
President Akufo-Addo's white paper on the KPMG report also emphasized this. The white paper said they didn't even get board approvals. The white paper said on 3 separate occasions, GRA denied approval for the use of single source to procure that contract, but they went ahead and gave it to SML. So even granted that parliamentary approval was not needed, the state's institution mandated to scrutinize contracts said this contract should not have gotten to SML, but GRA, which SML is quoting to back its claims, went ahead. So I don't know what they are talking about.
And then it's quite shocking, really, some of the revelations they've made today. They're basically defending the whole deal between SML and GRA. According to them, they allege that this administration is trying to introduce another company that will be offering the same services. Based on your investigative findings, is that the case?
SML has always claimed that someone else wanted their job, so they should name the company and then the government official who wants their job.
Now, stay with me, Manasseh, because Ken, you were at that news conference. My colleague Kenneth Jesse joins me in the studio, by the way, just to look at some of the key highlights of today's news conference. We just played excerpts for you when we started the show, but there are other key things that have come up. Ken, walk me through some of the key things that they've raised concerns about in that news conference.
Well, Fostina, so Sarfo Boyo, who's the lawyer for SML, also refuted the OSP's accusation that SML had received substantial payments without performing any verifiable work. He referred to official correspondence between the GRA and the company, including a 14th October 2025 letter confirming that SML's monitoring systems, for example, were operational and that the firm had met its contractual obligations from 2019 to 2024. And he continued to say that the payments were made strictly based on certified deliverables and valid reports. And also he cited statistics from the GRA and the Bank of Ghana showing a sharp reduction in the gap between fuel lifting and tax declarations following SML's deployment in mid-2020. He said the improvement was not a coincidence but a direct outcome of the company's real-time monitoring and verification tools. So these are some of the defense that were mounted by a lawyer for SML, Sarfo Boyo, who continued to argue at that particular press conference that the OSP's suggestion that the revenue increase was merely due to natural market growth was inaccurate and contradicted by independent fiscal data. And then he said, and I quote, "Facts and numbers don't lie," urging the public to compare pre and post SML revenue trends. So he was essentially urging the public to compare the data and facts for ourselves to see whether what he was saying was a fact or not.
Thank you, Ken. And we still have Manasseh with us. I would just like to read to our audience some of the key findings in this KPMG report. This afternoon we heard from SML and they have debunked all this, but this is a report by KPMG, and so I'll just highlight a bit of it so that you get a pictorial view of some of the concerns. And this was also quoted by the OSP, by the way, in the news conference they held a couple of days ago. Now, according to the KPMG report, SML was initially contracted by GRA without the required approval of the Public Procurement Authority and also parliamentary approval for the award for the multi-year contracts. There was no evidence that the 2018-2019 contracts awarded to SML were effected with the required consideration and approval by the GRA board. GRA did not institute monitoring and evaluation processes to assess the performance of SML in respect of transaction audit services. SML delivered partly on the transaction audit service, and GRA may not have obtained all the expected benefits from the service. The KPMG report goes on to state that SML delivered partially on the transaction audit service. And on the external price verification services, GRA may not have obtained all the expected benefits from the service in respect of the measurement of audit for downstream petroleum. And Kenneth is still with me. They highlighted that in that news conference, just responding to this claim. In respect of the measurement of audit for downstream petroleum, there was reported incremental volume that is attributable to the involvement of SML, determined at 1.70 billion liters for the period, which translates to incremental revenue of 2.45 billion attributable to the involvement of SML. They go on to state, this KPMG report, in respect of upstream petroleum audit, SML was yet to deploy and implement its systems to commence operations at the time of the KPMG review. Now, I'll come to you, Ken, because they respond to all these allegations, but let me just get Manasseh's brief reaction when it comes to the audit of the petroleum upstream sector. SML have been defending themselves, but the KPMG report says that as at the time that they deployed their men on the ground, SML was yet to implement its systems to commence operations at the time of KPMG's review. I'm sure you've been digging into this. Tell us more.
Yes, I think KPMG's conclusions and the findings are very shameful if you put them together. I'm saying this because KPMG, we assume, is a reputable international audit organization. So what you've just read, KPMG seems to be, or is saying, that this increment in revenue was attributable to SML's operation. But I just have with me, I mentioned pages 157 and 158 of the KPMG report. If you can find what I'm about to read. This is what KPMG said in that report about the revenues. And this is what he said. He said the following were observed from the analysis of the revenue collected by GRA over the period 2015 to 2023. This was before SML came and after SML. It says, 1, an incremental growth in revenue was observed from 2015 to 2023, except for a decline observed solely in 2017. So, meaning that in the 8-year period, there was always an increment in revenue when SML was not there. SML started in 2022, but they said 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, up to 2020. SML actually started in June 2020. So there was always an incremental revenue. It was only in 2017, and there's a reason for that. 2, one significant contributor to this growth was the increase in the number of taxes over the years, from 2 taxes in the petroleum sector in 2015 to 5 taxes in 2023. The GRA collects only the taxes. So if we had 2 taxes before SML came, and by the time SML came, the taxes increased to 5. And remember, more people bought cars, more people are using petroleum products. I don't know which auditor would attribute that to SML. Number 3, another significant contributor to this growth is the increase in tax rates in 2016, 2019, and 2021. Meaning even after SML came, tax rates, apart from the number of taxes going up, the rates were also going up. So if they were collecting 5%, some were increased to, let's say, 7%. The only time the tax rate dropped was in 2017, which KPMG said corresponded with the only year that taxes or revenue did not increase. Now, the final one says for any petroleum product lifted to be taxable, it must be declared in ICOMS, that's customs system. GRA records petroleum volumes lifted, taxable and non-taxable, are transmitted from NPA's ERDMS systems into ICOMS, meaning that the measurements SML did were even not used for tax purposes. That is what it said. If you look at the volumes, this is what KPMG says. An average of 400 million liters per month was already being recorded in Ghana in 2019 and in the first quarter of 2020, as per our review of NPA's data. SML claims that they are monitoring increased volumes and that translated into revenue. 2, NPA and GRA recorded a significant decrease in volume lifting in April 2020. That was when COVID-19 came. 3, volumes recorded after April 2020 were constantly above 400 million liters per month.
Okay.
And the final one says, in the latter half of 2020, when SML commenced operations, data comparison from 3 sources indicates that NPA reported the higher annual volumes than both SML and GRA.
Manasseh, stay with me because I would like us to just wrap up with you, but stay with me. I'll come back to you because I would like to just tell our audience what transpired when the OSP held that news conference, and I'll get a response from Kenneth because, Kenneth, you were at that news conference. We've been trying to reconnect our lines to get the counsel for SML, but we have been unsuccessful. When we do, we'll get him on board. But the OSP joined the news conference they held a couple of days back. Said a couple of things, and I'd like to quote him. He says that there was no genuine need for contracting SML for the obligations it purported to perform, and that the contracts were secured for SML through self-serving official patronage, sponsorship, and promotion based on false, unverified claims. The OSP goes on to state that the SML contracts were attended by egregious statutory breaches, as mandatory prior approvals were wantonly disregarded by relevant officials who acted with increased emboldenment. Now, can you add that news conference? And one of the things the OSP said, which I'd like you to give me the SML's response to that, is this third point, really, at that news conference. He said that there was no established financial management system of monitoring and verification to ensure that the Republic was obtaining the value for money it was paying SML, and that the payment channels of payments to SML were set on automatic model detached from actual performance, causing financial loss to the Republic. What's SML's defense for this?
So at this particular press conference, the OSP went on to cite examples. He said that most of the meters that were deployed nationwide by SML were actually faulty. But the SML today defended that claim, and they gave us a copy of a letter from the Ghana Standards Authority, which said, and I'm going to read part of it. It says that a letter from the custodian of weights and measures at the Ghana Standards Authority to the Minister of Trade and Industry, Katie Hammond, confirming the suitability for use of the meters employed by SML Limited in its work. The letter also highlights all the other types of meters used in the industry. The minister has, by a letter dated the 13th of November 2024, acknowledged receipt of this letter and did not raise any objections as to the guidelines given by the custodian of weights and measures. And I am by this letter, therefore, that the meters used by SML, which are calibrated and verified by the GSA, are suitable and accurate within the validity period of the calibration certificates. The GSA, which is the Ghana Standards Authority, would like to highlight the importance of ensuring calibration of these meters in line with the Ghana Standards Authority Act 2022, Act 1078. If you require any further clarifications or information, do let me know. And this one was signed by the custodian of weights and measures at the Ghana Standards Authority, Professor Alex Dodu. So they provide, I mean, among other evidence that they claim to have, this one to rebut the SP. The SP's claim that even most of the meters that they installed nationwide were faulty. Per this letter, which they say is from the Ghana Standards Authority, there were no objections that were raised by the authority or the then Minister for Trade, Katie Hammond. And of course, this is one of the numerous hard copy evidence that they provided to us at that particular press conference that ended a while ago, Fostina.
Thank you, Kenneth. Now, let me wrap up with Manasseh. We've just been hearing from SML and their defense, really. Today, they also stated that they will be defending themselves in court and retrieving any monies that the state owes them. We've heard from the OSP that they're also looking to retrieve some monies from SML. But you feel that that amount the OSP is looking to retrieve from SML is a paltry sum. Why exactly? Can you hear me? Okay. Unfortunately, we do not have connection to Manasseh Azuriawuni. He was just joining the conversation. We have been following this, and today SML held a news conference just to respond to some of the key findings that the OSP put out a couple of days back in its report. They're defending themselves. Can you also have other documents with you that SML provided in their bid to defend themselves? Now, if you just tune in, we have been trying to reach out to SML's official counsel who addressed this news conference to respond to some of these claims. We have been unsuccessful, but SML is also refuting the OSP's accusation that SML had received substantial payments without performing any verifiable work. And Ken, you've been listening to him at that news conference. Tell me more.
Right. So they've been, refuting those claims. One thing they mentioned is that all the projects that were started by them, they funded it wholly by their own money. 100% of all the projects that they started, they funded it themselves before, it went to government for approval. We can listen to Cephas Boyo, who is the lead counsel for the SML.
As though the seducer just sat at home, legs, sipping on tea. He's not doing any work for government and just collecting money. And, the company was just used to siphon money from government. That is not true. And that's we are going to show you documentary evidence. And I'll borrow Sami Jenfi's words that, this is, the presentation is, we are showing you evidence, Now, the allegation, OSP alleged that SML did not provide any service to GRA, yet was paid huge sums of money. This can be verified by official correspondence from the Ghana Revenue Authority itself. And you see, we don't need to do this to our institutions. One person cannot sit in Ghana Revenue Authority and do out money and give it to someone. No, it can never happen. It goes through a lot of processes. When you send reports, they will definitely they will verify, they will validate, they would, certify, and all that before you are paid. It doesn't, when you throw it in there like that, they didn't do anything. SML didn't do anything, and they're just being paid money. The ordinary Ghanaian sitting there, of course, will be angry. And no, you see, we won't fault the journalists. Sometimes, journalists, you do your investigation. You may not have the capacity to find certain information. Okay? But when an investigative body like the OSP makes such assertion, then that is serious. That is serious.
Well, you had the counsel for SML, Cephas Boyo. Well, we know that the Office of the Special Prosecutor is seeking to recover some 125 million from SML, and they say they are ready to meet the OSP in court. I still do not have clear connection to Manasseh, so at this point in time, we have to go. Thank you so much for your time here on Top Story. My name is Fostina Sarfo. For more news, please log on to myjoyonline.com.